Hello, in this video we're going to go over the mates in SolidWorks. A lot of people think that mates in SolidWorks are a big complicated thing, but they're not. So we're going to go over kind of how they're used most efficiently. And not all of them, just the basic ones. So I have this little block that I've made. I've just got colors on 3 faces so we can kind of see what's going on when we're turning it around. So I brought that first one in, and of course it gets fixed to its location. And that's good. So let me bring in another one. Gosh, I'll just copy paste it. There we go. So the easiest way to mate things together is by picking faces. So if I go to mate, I get a big long list of things, and don't worry about any of this. Worry about picking the things that you want to go together first. If I want these 2 red faces to line up with each other and be going the same direction, I just pick on those 2 faces. It's going to line them up. Yeah, it moves them, but that doesn't matter right now. I can always move it around by adding other mates, but I can use this alignment here. It's kind of the most common adjustment we make while mating things together. Make sure that they're facing the right direction. Either we want them facing the same direction, or aligned, or flush, or we want it facing opposite directions, or in SolidWorks calls it anti-aligned. There. So either way, we pick which we want, and we say okay. Now we can pick the other relationship we want. So if we want like these 2 green sides to be flush or aligned, we can pick those 2, and it's going to bring it out, and we can say okay. And now I can't really get to the other stuff, but if I go in and I pick, let's say I want to pick this back side of this part here, I'm just going to hit escape, grab this. That one's the one that doesn't move. That one does. So this is my block 2. I want the back side of the box 2 to line up with that one. So I'm going to go mate there to there, and it's done. So that was great. That was just a straightforward lining stuff up that's already lined up. What if I want to line stuff up that's not lined up already? So I'm going to go ahead and just expand the mates here and delete all these and say yes to all. I'm going to drag that over there somewhere. So now I want to stick it where now maybe this green face is stuck on top of the red face, and then I want the red face to line up with the blue face. So I'm going to mate. I tell it what I want. This to go there. And it's not on top of it, that doesn't matter. Then I want the red face to go to the blue face. Oh, I want it to be aligned, so I flip it around that way. And now I can tell it I want that to go there. So as you're putting through the mates, don't worry about if it's in the wrong location or anything. Just keep adding your mates and it'll fix itself. It'll reorientate and turn to be what you want it to be. So that's the kind of the most common set is that. Another common one is we want to line up cylinders. So I'm going to go to mate. I'm going to go in here, and again, I'm not going to pick the edge. I want to pick the face. Picking faces of objects gives you more than just that edge. If I pick here, it's going to give me basically like the center point of that circle rather than the axis of this hole. So if I pick there, I go in and I pick here. Again, picking things that might not change. If I picked the counter bore and I decide to change this to be a countersink, then that's not going to work anymore, and that mate will break. But if I pick the hole here, then I can change that to be just a plain hole, a counter bore hole, a countersunk hole, and it's always going to work again when I come back to this assembly. And so you can see, I put it in there. Now the alignment switches the direction of the axis alignment. And you can see the whole thing's twisted, but that's fine. We can always fix that. And it took it and locked it in as a concentric constraint there. So I can say okay. So now if I move this, it'll spin and it'll go up and down, but it'll stay on that axis. So now I can go in and tell it how I want it to be. So let's say I want there to be a 2-inch space here. I can click there, click there. It's automatically going to make it flush using the Coincident. But if I want to have a space there, I can always click in here and tell it that I want it to be 2 inches above, or 1 inch, or whatever I want. So I can say, okay, now I can't go up and down, but it can still spin. Now I can pick faces, pick those 2, and it's going to try and align them. If they're going to be lined up, it's going to add a Coincident. If I pick ones that can't be lined up, I can tell it to be parallel. Again, I can change the rotation, which way it's going, or I can put in an angle, and I can tell it 40 degrees. And with the angles, I can have a flip direction to go which way that way, and also a flip direction to go which way that way. So I kind of have 4 options for having an angle, how it's measuring. Then I can say okay, and get those in. So those are kind of the basics of doing them. So you don't need to really pick these. If you pick them and they're going to line up, it's going to automatically do a coincident. If not, parallel or perpendicular or an angular. And then you can also, if it's going to be a coincident, you can add in a distance there. Those are the most common ones. There's a lot more here under the advanced and mechanical. For most of what people do, these are the basics of what they need to know. So I didn't talk about edges or anything like that, so let's take a look at what happens if we do pick something that's not a face. So I'm going to hide all those. So if I pick this edge and this edge, you can see it puts it down there. And now it can slide forward and back, and it can go up and down along there. I always forget where this has the degrees of freedom. No. So, but it's stuck on the edge, but it doesn't really define where that is. And so if you have things that have a complex shape and you want to use 2 edges to lock it down, that can be done. I usually don't like to do that. I like to try and use faces or create a plane if I can on that. We can also, one thing I didn't go over earlier was using the planes within an object to constrain it. So if I go to mate and I want the center plane here to line up with the center plane there and not using the holes, I can do that also. So I can pick kind of going through either the assembly, or I can go into these parts here and I can say I want that plane to line up with that plane, and it puts it in. So I can always expand here and pick planes within a part, and that could be a work plane or whatever. So get out of that. So if I do this and I pick a point, now you can see it's constrained by just that single point. You can still rotate in all the directions around that. Same thing happens if I pick circles. You can see it's kind of going all around. Another reason I don't like to use those points. There is one good use for using edges though, and if I get out of here, I start a new assembly. If you were going to make something of a bunch of different flat shapes, so like a dodecahedron or something like that, and you wanted to be able to align them by edges, then that would be a good point, a good way to do this. So if you've got equal size pieces there that you want to put together. So here we've got 4 triangles, and I want to put these together into a pyramid. So if I mate and I pick this edge here and that edge there, and then this edge here and that edge there, and then this edge, not the face, that edge there, and now I could pick these edges here, and nope, I don't want it lined up like that, I want it to go that way. And I can pick that edge there. And you want to make sure you're picking the same one. You can see on this one I made it pretty thick, so that way it's easy to tell which side is which. If you're doing sheet metal like this, sometimes those edges are pretty close. You want to make sure you always pick the same inside edge. Because if I pick the outside edge, it's going to look like that. It's not going to be the right way. So I want to make sure that I pick that inside edge. There we go. So now I've got this kind of pyramid shape. Now I can always go back in and then edit that part. tell it that, yeah, I wanted that really to be 16 gauge. And then rebuild it, and it sucks it back down. So that's always one way you can do is make it a little thicker, whether you're using sheet metal tools or you're just using an extrusion. And then so that way you can pick the edges nicely and then go back and shrink it up later. So, all right.